Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at a new Eonon product for 2024. This is a Android 13 head unit which has a couple of gigs of RAM, runs Android Auto and Apple CarPlay of course, but it has an innovation of USB-C enabling fast charge capability as well, which is something that I haven't actually seen on any other Android head unit. And what makes this particularly good is it's only £140, $160 currently, which makes it an excellent value head unit. Let's have a look. If you frequent my channel, you know that I review quite a few Android head units, and I have indeed reviewed a couple of Eonons as well, and they do make excellent products, which actually did appear in my latest top 7 video that I released not too long ago. So it is interesting to see that they have brought out something which is not a rival to their existing products. It's supposed to complement what they already have out, because this one is a budget Android head unit. So you still get really good specs from a point of view. It's Android 13, but it does only have 2 GB of RAM, and we're about to find out what difference that actually makes. But I'm very interested to see the USB-C that this has as well, because my friend Miles was actually complaining to me not long ago that the Android head unit in his car doesn't actually charge his phone when it is connected via USB, and as a result of that, as he's using Android Auto, his phone battery actually goes down instead of being charged, and that's obviously highly annoying. So it's nice to have Android head units that actually can charge your phone, and to have fast charge capability, which is apparently what this thing has, is going to be very, very good as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's inside this box. I'm going to go install it in the car, and then I'm going to show you what it's capable of. But before I do any of that, please remember that I don't get paid to endorse any company or products, including this Eonon device. These videos are simply for me to give you my opinion on what I think of these products, so that you can see whether or not you want to buy one. Okay, let's go and do it now. And here it is, and I can already see that there's some very desirable features on this, so let's take a look. So as you can see, we have this lovely physical volume knob, which is quite rare on Android head units these days. You normally just have capacitive touch buttons or nothing at all, but what we have here is a physical volume knob and also a physical home button as well, which is great. Up here we have a microphone built in, we have a reset button here, and then we have that USB-C, which I've never seen on any Android head unit so far. So this is what's going to enable that fast charge capability. Then we have a USB-A and an analog auxiliary audio input, which is great as well. It's a standard 2-DIN form factor, which means it's going to be really easy to install in the car, and which is so important. And on the back here, we have the main loom entry point here. We've got a bunch of connections, which I'll go into in just a second. And then over here we have the GPS antenna input and the FM radio antenna input here as well. And that's pretty much it. So let's see what else is in the box. So we have some installation tips and a user manual, which is always useful. We have an external microphone, GPS antenna, a ISO loom for easy installation. We have 3 USB ports, which is awesome. We have a loom specifically for the backup camera. We have a loom which has RCA pre-outs for the rear left and rear right. And this is a TX-RX CAN bus connection as well. So that means it can be compatible with visualizing things like your climate controls, heated seats, open doors, if you have a CAN bus decoder in a car that's compatible, so that's cool as well. And then we have a loom which has the rest of the RCAs, so we have front, left and right audio pre-outs and the subwoofer pre-out. So that's 5 pre-outs, front, left and right, rear, left and right, and subwoofer, which is great for the price point. We've got a front camera input here, and then we have video and audio input through auxiliary RCAs. We've got an amp trigger wire, and we have the external microphone connection here as well. Interestingly, they appear to have given us a secondary type of what looks like a knob. So if you didn't like this kind of knob, you could replace it with this. And we have some mounting screws as well, and a spare fuse that they've included in the box, which is also cool. Right, let's go and stick it in the car and see what it's capable of. And here's the Eonon installed in my Saab 9 III, and it was so easy to install. This is actually a real double DIN sized unit. Like some of the other Chinese head units they're double DIN, but they have this plastic front on, which means they don't slide all the way into the cage. But this one just slid straight in, the bezel went straight on. So the kit for this car, I had no modification whatsoever. The thing just got installed really, really easily, and I love that. And then from a wiring perspective, it was plug and play using the Connects 2 loom for this particular car. So if there's a loom for your car, it's going to be plug and play. Awesome stuff. Right, let's switch it on and see how long it takes to boot up. Before I do though, if you're interested in one of these, you'll find links in the video description in where you can buy them. Right, let's have a look. That's on now, and there we go. So that's practically an instant boot time, and that is awesome. Now, I should start by telling you, I actually am in awe of the quality of this head unit based on the cost of it. It's really cost effective. It's one of the cheaper Android head units that I've tested. This is definitely the best Android head unit I've tested for the money that you're paying for it. So I'm going to show you why now. So let's talk about the look and feel, starting with the screen itself. The screen is only a 600p resolution, but that's plenty for the use case. It's only a 7-inch screen, and as you can see, it's nice and sharp and you can see everything on it. And it's not QLED, so you're not going to get amazing contrast, but you can see everything very nicely on the screen. It's great from that standpoint. Now, talking about the launcher itself, on the left-hand side here, you've got a shortcut to navigation, a shortcut to local media. You've got an icon which opens the other apps. You have an icon for Bluetooth, and you have the settings down here as well. On the top left here, you have a widget for the FM radio. I'll show you the FM radio in just a bit. Underneath that, you have a little animation thing with a speedometer and a clock. It does actually say it in kilometers an hour, and that doesn't change, unfortunately. On the top right here, it's my favorite widget. As you probably, if you watch my other videos, you know that my favorite widget is the window where you can run any app. So what you're looking at the moment, that animation that you're seeing in there at the moment, is Project M audio visualizer. So when I play music, that's going to dance around, and that's really, really cool. And finally, in the bottom right hand corner, you will find 5 icons, and they are set by you. So I've chosen the apps that I'm going to be using the most, and that is why they are currently on display here. So from a launcher perspective, and the fact that it has this widget here where you can run any app on the actual launcher itself is fabulous. And you don't really get that on 7-inch Android head units. So Eonon already is scoring very, very high points just because it has that. Now, from a specifications perspective, this Android head unit runs Android 13. Okay, so the other Eonon units, the latest Eonon units run Android 12, the more powerful ones, but this budget one actually runs Android 13, which is awesome. So all the latest apps are going to be working on this Android head unit. That's fabulous. And you can see that here on Geekbench 5. You can also see the resolution here, which is 600p. It's got 2 GB of memory. But what does that really mean in real world terms? Well, that's why we do our speed test. So let's see how long it takes to boot up Spotify. And there we go. So that's all the artwork has now been loaded in. That wasn't too bad. Remember, this is a budget head unit, and some of the ones that I've tested that are around this price are absolutely terrible, and it takes ages and ages to load everything, but that was actually pretty fast. So let's have a look at Waze. Yeah, and there we go. So it's plenty fast for the use case. No issues there whatsoever with regards to speed. It's not the fastest, but obviously if you're paying this low amount of money, it doesn't have to be the fastest. It's still functional. And remember, if we just use this button up here, we can switch between apps. If you've already loaded the app, you can instantly switch to it, which means you don't need to wait that loading time to get it working. So it's got multitask ability. So using this app here, we can have a look at all the apps that are currently installed. And of course, the whole point of having an Android head unit is that you actually have lots more features than a standard car head unit. You don't just get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, you can actually install whatever apps you want. So as you can see on here, we have Netflix, YouTube, Spotify. I got my Project M music visualizer. There's lots of things that you can run on this That's what makes them special. And then obviously, aside from the fact that you can have whatever apps you want, you can use tire pressure monitoring systems in the USB ports, you can have DAB radio, you can have pretty much whatever you want installed on this, and it'll be absolutely fine. Obviously, reverse camera is a standard thing that you would have as well. Now, if we go into the radio, you can see that the design of it is actually pretty nice. And one of my big bugbears is whether or not it has RDS. And you can see here that the radio station name can actually be seen up here. You can see BBC Radio 3 just up here. Unfortunately, it doesn't show the radio station name in a prominent position. I would expect it to be here instead of the radio frequency, or indeed on the presets. I don't want to see the frequency of the radio station, I want to see the actual name of the radio station, and that's not actually the case. Like you don't know what these radio stations are until you click them, and then you can see the name of the station up here. But you know, beggars can't be choosers, and there are other radio apps that you can install, which I've shown in some of my other videos. But it's fit for purpose. You can listen to the radio on it, you can tune your radio stations in, and you can save the presets so it does what it's meant to do. So to change the application that runs within this little widget here, what we do is we go into the settings, and then we go into personal, and then desktop software display settings. And as you can see, it's got Project M currently selected. That's the music visualization software that I like. So instead, we can have pretty much any app that you want. But say, for example, we wanted to navigate, we can go into Google Maps. And as you can see, it's running the full version of Google Maps within this little window here. And that means you can navigate without actually leaving the launcher software, which is awesome. One of the other apps that I love to run in this little window is Spotify, because it means that you get all your album art and your track names and everything on the actual launcher screen, so that you don't need to literally go into the main app and have it full screen. So that's pretty cool. One of the really important aspects of setting up an Android head unit is making sure that your steering wheel controls work. So once you've got it all connected up, what you do is you go into settings, and you go into the assembly, which is the last one up here, and we go into steering wheel learning. And all that does is it means that when you press a button on the steering wheel, you can then press a corresponding button on the screen, and it's going to learn that functionality for you. So currently, at the moment, I have full control over the volume and changing the tracks, and it was very, very easy to set up, and that's a lovely aspect of this unit as well. So let's see how fast this USB-C actually does charge. I'm going to plug in the USB cable now. You can hear my phone buzzing because it's charging. And I've got one of these fancy USB cables which actually tells me how many watts. So as you can see, my fancy USB cable is showing me that 17 watts is going through to the phone. And actually that's the limit of the OnePlus Open when I'm not using the official OnePlus charger. So that's a very, very quick charge, which means that the USB-C on here is giving a really good output, which is going to charge my phone very quickly. Exactly what it's meant to do, which is fantastic. So let's have a look at Android Auto. So to do that, we go into the apps and we open Z-Link 5, which is the Android Auto app, and that opens Android Auto, which is what we now have on the screen, split between Spotify on one side and Waze, which is my app of choice for navigation, and I have the other Android Auto apps here as well. And let's just see what sort of delay we're talking about here. Yeah, that's fine. Not too much delay with the, not too much lag. So it appears that Android Auto is working just fine. And that is actually wirelessly as well. If I unplug my phone, you can see that that's actually connected via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So you have completely wireless Android Auto. Right, let's try Apple CarPlay. So we're just going to connect to Eonon here. 0000 is the password, pair connected. And let's just wait for this to work. Use CarPlay, yes. And there we go. So we've got completely wireless Apple CarPlay, and again we got the split between Waze and the music applications as well, and all the apps that I have connected to my phone via Apple CarPlay are all on the screen. And again, it looks all right. It's not lagging much at all. So Apple CarPlay completely wireless on this Android head unit. It looks really good as well. So yeah, that's really, really good. So let's talk about the audio functionality. So we go into the apps and we go into the EQ app. So this is the equalizer settings. And you can see that it has some sort of preset audio options here, where you can choose sort of how you want the head unit to sound. And it's going to give you a visual representation of the equalizer on the screen right here. If we go into the next tab here, it gives you the actual equalizer, where you actually have the ability to change each of the frequency bands manually by moving these up and down. Or if we go to the next page, you have another 18. So we actually have 36 bands of equalizer that we can change here, which means you have quite a lot of control over the overall sound of the unit. If you didn't want to change the individual bands separately, you can actually draw across this and alter the actual spectrum of audio across multiple bands all at once, just with one sweep of your finger. And then of course you can modify this from the individual bandings on this tab here. So from a user interface, from a graphic equalizer perspective, this is actually very, very good indeed. And once you've set it up how you want it, you can press and hold one of the preset buttons and it will save that preset to that button, which means you can still play around with it, but then you can go back to what you've actually set it to. So that's really, really great. Obviously at the same time, if you don't want to mess around with all the frequencies and you just want a really easy way of dealing with everything, then you can just use one of these presets and it's just going to set it up so you can see what you like the sound of. This next tab controls the subwoofer, and that's particularly useful in this car where I actually do have an aftermarket subwoofer, and you can control the volume and individual frequency control on this side as well. So that's excellent. And then finally, you have individual control of the speakers themselves, and again, the subwoofer from this standpoint as well. So you do have a fair amount of control. From an audio quality perspective, it does actually sound good. It doesn't rival the far more expensive head units. For example, the Eonon UA13 does actually sound better than this, and it has more control over the audio, but this doesn't sound bad. For the money, it's definitely very, very good head unit. So that is the UA13. Absolutely exceptional head unit for very small amount of money, and I really do like it. It is probably the best cheap Android head unit that you can buy, simply because of all the features that it has, the software quality. It's just an excellent head unit. I actually recommend this one. Eonon, you have done a very good job for the lower end side of Android head units. Now, if I've missed anything in this video, please do ask in the comments section below and I'll see what I can do. And if there's any particular Android head unit that you'd like me to review, just ask and I'll see if I can get hold of one and I can do a video on it. But please do subscribe to my channel because I have a lot of additional videos coming out in the very near future.